Welcome, everyone. We are happy to have a full house today. This is the Provo Municipal Council, and it's 5:30 on Tuesday, August 22nd, 2023. We'd like to recognize we have council staff, and we have Councilor George Handley, Councilor Bill Fillmore, Councilor Dave Shipley, Councilor Shannon Ellsworth, myself, Patrice McKay, Councilor Rachel Whipple, the Mayor, Michelle Kafusi, and Wayne Parker. The opening prayer will be by Jim Miguel.
Our dear Heavenly Father, as we gather here tonight, we do so with much gratitude for the blessings that we have been given. We're so thankful for this beautiful community, for those that work so hard to ensure its beauty and its safety and ensure that those that live and work here are served. We are so thankful for those that give of their time to serve this community and pray that they would be watched over and they would feel thy love as they contemplate the things that are before them tonight. Heavenly Father, tonight we will swear in a new fire chief, and we are so thankful for his willingness to serve. We're so thankful for the men and women of public safety in this city. We pray that they would be watched over. We pray that they would be safe and that they would be successful in all that they do. Please bless Chief Hedman as he takes on this responsibility, that he feels of the love and support of this entire organization and feels of thy love. Again, we're grateful for all that thou hast given us. We ask for thy spirit to be with us this night. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. It's nice to have Miguel back with us. The Pledge of Allegiance will be provided by Councilor Shannon Ellsworth.
Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As indicated on the screen, a required public hearing will be held for certain agenda items prior to council action. After each such item has been presented, time to comment will be provided for all those who wish to speak. For items that do not require a public hearing, public comment will still be taken following presentation of the item, but will be limited to 10 minutes. At this time, up to 15 minutes have been set aside for an open public comment period, which is intended to allow comments on matters that do not appear on the agenda. Persons who speak during this time to an item that is on the agenda will not normally be afforded a second opportunity to speak during the comment period specific to that item. During any public comment period, each speaker will generally be limited to 2 minutes. Due to noticing requirements, no formal action will be taken in this meeting on matters that do not appear on the agenda. Those with comments are invited to approach the podium. Those participating on Zoom will need to use the raise hand feature to indicate they wish to comment. The chair may choose to alternate between in-person and online commenters. Please begin your comments by stating your name and your city of residence. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. So please come forward if you're interested in open comment right now.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Schiffler Olson. I'm a resident of Provo. I love this city. I did not actually think I was going to come here to the meeting, but one of my people who is homeless told me she would. She didn't show up because it's raining outside. Who'd blame her to walk in the rain? I have so many people out in this rain. If they stand on the green strip, they run risk of being cited for trespassing. They cannot pitch a tent to stay dry. I have 3 human beings very, very near and dear to my heart, who I'm not sure are going to make it through the winter. Tired. My heart hurts every day when I come home from work as a peer support specialist on the streets of the city. Our homeless are our residents. They are my family. I got off the streets 10 years ago. I was in your ward. I know you don't remember it, and I have absolute respect for you. 10 years ago, my 4 children and I got off the streets, and immediately we turned around and started making soup for the people who were on the streets at Christmas time. I have been teaching my children ever since then. We reach back, not down, because we are eye to eye with these other human beings. We reach out. I know you're in a really hard place. I know there are a lot of people in this town who really dislike the homeless, and they think the influx is from outside coming in. Our housing crisis right now means that there are 4 to 5 new families going to community action.
Thank you, Bonnie. All right, we are starting oh, I'm sorry. Are there any additional comments? Nope. We are starting a new tradition, I guess you'd call it, as in the council, where we are going to have new fire and new police, and when they get promotions, to come through the council once a month for those promotions, so they're not waiting so long to do it in other public meetings. Right now, we have an implied motion on a resolution consenting the mayor's appointment of the fire chief for Provo City, and this will be presented by the mayor, Michelle Kafusi.
Good evening, Council Chair McKay and City Council. I'm honored this evening to seek your consent to the appointment of Jeremy Hedman as Chief of the Provo City Fire Department. Chief Hedman's life and background have uniquely prepared him for this day. Like me, Jeremy was born right here in Provo. Unlike me, he was raised as the son of a Provo City firefighter and followed in his father's footsteps by joining Provo Fire almost 30 years ago. Since then, he has filled virtually every role available in the department, including serving ably as deputy chief for the last several years. Known as a humble and dedicated public servant, Chief Hedman has earned the esteem of his fellow firefighters and the rest of the Provo City organization. One of our Provo pillars is safe and sound, and I believe your consent to the appointment of Chief Hedman will help keep Provo just that, safe and sound. So with that, I would ask for your advice and consent, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions for the mayor? Thank you. Any council discussion? All right, we will take a vote on the implied motion. Chair McKay, yes. Vice Chair Whipple?
Yes.
Councillor Ellsworth?
Yes.
Councillor Fillmore?
Yes, indeed.
Councillor Handley?
Yes.
Councillor Shipley?
Yes.
And Councillor Hoban?
Absolutely, yes.
That is unanimous, 7-0, and we welcome on the chief.
Fantastic. So because it's we appreciate your support, and it's such a big deal for me as the mayor and for the whole city organization, we've asked Judge Romney to join us tonight and to go ahead and proceed with his official swearing in. So this time I'll have his wife come up, and Judge and Chief, and we'll make it official.
I state your name.
I, Jeremy Hedman,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge
and that I will discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
I've asked Chief Hedman just to say a few words, if that's okay. Take a few more minutes.
So over my career, I've had a lot of amazing opportunities and a lot of interesting experiences along the way. To have the opportunity to be the Provo Fire Chief is the greatest honor of my career. I want to take a minute to thank Mayor Kafusi and the council for giving me this opportunity. The council and the mayor have supported us at every turn as the fire department, and we couldn't be effective without your support, so thank you. I wouldn't be here today without the support of my family. I have my mom and dad here, my brother, and my wife and kids. I especially want to thank my wife, Jenny, for her amazing support. She stood beside me through the ups and downs of life and this career. I've had a lot of opportunities to work with great leaders in the fire department and in the city, and some of them are here today, and it's humbling to have the support that I have. Many of them have given a lot to me over the years. They've taken the time to help me develop into the person I am today, and I want to thank them. To the members of Provo Fire Department, it's an honor to be named among you. I love and respect every one of you. It's 28 years of amazing service with so many amazing people. It's just been fun and a lot of great work. We have the best firefighters in the state, and I appreciate what each and every one of you do to make Provo Fire Department great. Last, I want to thank everybody that's here to support me today. It's humbling. It's hard not to get a little emotional over it, and I'm not a very emotional person, so that says something. I do commit to serving tirelessly to make Provo Fire Department a little better than I found it. I see this as an opportunity for me to give back to the community and to the fire department that took a chance on hiring me 28 years ago. And I thank you for the opportunity to serve as the Provo Fire Chief. Thank you.
And if it's okay, I'll ask that we can be excused because we've got a fun little reception for him and his friends and family just right outside the door. So Chief, lead us out.
Welcome, Chief. Here, we're gonna help you again. All right, we're going to move on to an applied motion on an ordinance amending the zone map classification of approximately 6.9 acres of real property generally located at 3155 West Center Street from A1 agricultural to AI Airport Industrial. This is the Provo Bay neighborhood. It'll be presented by Aaron Ardmore, our planning supervisor.
Okay, all right, I get to follow that. So that's fun. So we talked about this in study session today. I have the slides, yeah. So here's the property between Lakeview Parkway, Lakeshore Drive, currently agricultural zone, agricultural use, and then there's a retail landscape rock and material establishment business on the north part of the property here. So what is being proposed is the airport industrial zone. So the general plan here you can see is airport related. So staff's reviewed this zone change request and feel it complies with the general plan and helps the city meet its goals for this area of the city. Here's a concept that we looked at a little bit earlier today as well. And as we move forward, this concept will be kind of worked on and a full project plan would come forward to meet the zone that is being asked for tonight. But that's all I have. If you have any questions for me, I'd like to answer those.
Any questions for Aaron? Councillor Hoban.
Was there any concerns or feedback from the neighborhood at all? Did I miss that?
No, so there was a concern from the assisted living, elderly living to
That's
the north
right.
there
That's right.
about traffic, and we'll try to work through those through the project plan to make sure that the traffic impacts are mitigated.
No idea what this warehouse would be yet, but what the intended use would be.
Spec warehouse space, probably 4 buildings, around 100,000 square feet is what he's
Airport
looking at.
related, likely,
Right,
long term.
right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Councillor Shipley.
Is there any sense, does the city have some kind of sense of how much warehouse space is justified for this area? I guess in my mind, I'm thinking we all assume that the airport's going to grow and expand and needs a lot of warehouse space to support but then you have places obviously in other cities that you look at and say, okay, I mean, one warehouse after another for blocks and blocks and blocks just doesn't beautify any area of the city. So what's the sense from the city? I mean, I know we've this is part of the plan and that's okay, but is there any sense of how much warehouse space is enough or too much?
I don't have an idea on that. People that are more involved in the market would, but you're right. You see a lot of it coming down I-15. What's nice about the airport related general plan, the airport and the airport industrial zones, is they allow for a variety of uses. This is one of those uses that this concept is showing, but it also allows a variety of retail uses, hotels, motels, things like that could fill out the area. So I think in time we'll see a good mix of those as the market calls for it.
Thank you.
Councillor Whipple.
So in the work meeting, I asked if this had gone by the Ag Commission or if they'd had any input. And you said no, because this is part of the plan. We didn't anticipate any issues. And that makes good sense to me. I would just like that in the future for any ag conversions that we do check in with them on that, just because it will help us to know that, yeah, we're doing that. And, all of our external boards and commissions are weighing in when it seems to be appropriate.
Great. We'll make sure to do that in the future.
Yeah, but I don't think that there's any harm caused by this particular one. But thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you again so much
Yeah,
for doing this clear presentation for us.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. All right, I would like to open this item up for public comment. All right, we will close public comment. Council discussion. Okay, we will call for a vote on the implied motion. Councillor Whipple.
Yes.
Councillor Ellsworth.
Yes.
Councillor Fillmore.
Yes.
Councillor Handley.
Yes.
Councillor Shipley.
Yes.
Councillor Hoban.
Yes.
And Councillor McKay, yes. So that is unanimous with 7 votes for. Next, we have an implied motion on ordinance amending Provo City Code regarding communication towers and antennas. And this will be presented by Dustin Wright.
All right, thank you. So this item is, let's see. Okay. So this is a staff-initiated text amendment that we have put together to help address some issues that we've seen recently on some other projects that have come forward. And so this amendment would help align our city code with some federal guidelines and requirements for cell towers, essentially ones that have non-substantial changes being proposed for them, that we just take those through as a building permit and not take them through a conditional use permit process. The other part would be that the amendment would help create some language in there that would give the Planning Commission some flexibility for the location of where the towers are placed on a property, to help ensure that we're locating them in the best places on the properties. And the third part would be establishing some guidelines as far as when there's changes that are that come after the fact, that those changes would be able to come back to the Planning Commission and be established through voting upon the changes for the location of cell towers. So that's essentially what this text amendment that we're bringing forward. The Planning Commission has forwarded a positive recommendation to the council, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thanks, Dustin. Any questions for Dustin? Okay, thank you. I'd like to open up this item for public comment. All right, seeing no public comment, we'll move to council discussion. Councilor Hoban.
I just want to say thanks to Chair McKay. So this was spurred by something that occurred in my neighborhood, and Chair McKay took an interest in that and went ahead and pursued making these changes with the city. So I thought that was great work as a council member, being proactive and seeing an issue and taking care of it so it doesn't happen again.
Thanks, Travis. He was my second. All right, are we ready for a vote then? We'll call for a vote on the implied motion. Councilor Ellsworth.
Yes.
Councilor Fillmore.
Yes.
Councilor Handley.
Yes.
Councilor Shipley.
Yes.
Councilor Hoban.
Yes.
Councilor McKay, yes, and Councilor Whipple.
Yes.
So that's unanimous with 7-0. All right, an implied motion on an ordinance granting Rocky Mountain Power a non-exclusive franchise to install, maintain, and operate power poles and other related facilities in Provo. And this will be presented by our city attorney, Brian Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Chair McKay, councilors. This, again, is a fairly routine item. Whenever a company is coming in and operating in our right-of-way, they need our express permission to do that. So that's what a franchise agreement is for. We do these pretty routinely for Questar Gas, for example, for all of the telecom companies. Now, this one's a little bit unique in the sense that Provo has its own energy utility. So we actually are the energy service provider for the residents of Provo. But there are Rocky Mountain Power facilities in Provo. And I should mention, just to be clear, that this is not, this is a renewal in essence, because the previous franchise has expired. So this isn't a new thing where Rocky Mountain is just coming into the city. They've been in the city for decades, and the previous franchise agreement had expired. So we went through the process of drafting and negotiating a new one, and that's what's before you now. What it allows to happen is Rocky Mountain Power has facilities that run through the city, but because they serve customers on both sides of the city, so they need to have transmission lines that go through the city. In addition to that, they do have a few customers in the city. It's very few because it's actually required by state law that those be allowed and permitted by the city in order for Rocky Mountain to serve customers. And I believe most of these customers were already being serviced by them prior to 2013. Many of them have to do with instances where they were serving properties before they were even annexed into the city. And then once annexed, we just reached an agreement that they would continue to serve them so that we didn't have to build new facilities. Their primary customer is the state hospital. They provide the energy to the state hospital facility. And then there's just a handful of other small customers. It's on my laptop if we need to refer to it, but I had talked with Travis Ball, our energy director, earlier, and he sent me a list. After there was a change in state law in 2013, both sides were actually obligated to provide each other with a list of all of their customers. And so we have a list it's just one sheet. It's a one-sheet list on a table. So we have that list. It's probably 20 or 30 customers total. And like I said, the state hospital is probably the only significant one. So this is just a renewal of their agreement, authorizing them to continue to have their facilities in city rights of way. Are there any questions I can answer?
Yes. Councilor Ellsworth.
Yeah, so I'm on the power board for Provo, and one of the issues that comes up fairly regularly that we probably aren't addressing here is just that the power poles are accessed by multiple entities or agencies, but then when the lines need to be removed, they don't come back and remove them.
Right.
And then citizens don't know who to contact, and you get kind of this wire pollution. Is there any provision in here, and you said it mostly applies to the state hospital, but is there any provision in here that requires them to remove lines that are abandoned or unused?
I'd have to go back and look at that. I'm not sure off the top of my head. It's a little bit of a different situation because what normally happens with those situations that you're referring to is that those are Provo City power poles that other providers like telecom providers are coming in and they are putting attachments onto our poles. Okay. And so in those situations, we have provisions that say where we can require them to come back and take the attachments off. In this particular situation, we're talking about Rocky Mountain Power's own poles. They hold the pole, they own the poles, they own the wires, they own everything that goes through the right of way. I don't believe that we have any attachments on their poles, but we would need a separate, what we call a pole attachment or a joint facilities use agreement to cover that. There are provisions in this that say we can make them move their facilities if we need them to. So if we are, if there's another annexation, if there's a development that comes in that conflicts, as long as we can provide them an alternate route for their facilities, we can actually make them move them at their cost.
Gotcha. Okay, that answers my question. Thanks.
Is Rocky Mountain here right now?
I don't believe so. Anybody from Rocky Mountain? It's not something that we've typically invited the applicants to, but we can, if there's some question, we can always continue it and invite them to come if there are any questions. I believe Councilor Handley has a question.
Councilor Handley.
Yeah, what is the current or the agreement that we're considering renewing? What does it say, if anything, about any what happens if Rocky Mountain Power wanted to expand its clientele in Provo?
I don't know that the agreement actually, what the agreement says about that is that they can't do so without the express permission of the council. And the reason why it says that is because that is actually current state law. So they cannot service in any municipality that has its own electrical utility. Outside third-party electrical providers cannot service anyone inside the city boundaries without the express permission of the governing body of the city.
Okay, thank you.
I assume that there's a price to this franchise agreement, but I didn't see a price.
Yeah, they are subject to the municipal sales and use tax, municipal energy sales and use tax. It's 6% of the deliverable, of the value of the deliverable energy that they deliver to their clients is owed to us as a tax. State Tax Commission actually collects it and then turns it back to us.
Is that regulated by the state too?
Yes.
Any other questions for Brian? All right, thanks, Brian.
Okay, thank you.
We'd like to open up this item for public comment. All right, we will close public comment and we'll take a vote on the implied motion. Counselor Fillmore,
Yes.
Counselor Handley,
Yes.
Counselor Shipley,
Yes.
Counselor Hoban,
Yes.
Counselor McKay, yes. Counselor Whipple,
Yes.
Counselor Ellsworth,
Yes.
and that's unanimous. Next, an applied motion on a resolution appropriating $57,635 in the general fund for water conservation and transfer of that same amount to the Parks and Rec Capital Improvement Fund. And this will be presented by Doug Robbins, our Assistant Director of Parks and Rec.
Thank you, Council, for the opportunity to present to you tonight. I'm joined tonight with our Parks and Grounds Superintendent, James Cornaby. We'll be talking about our recommendations for this effort. Parks and Recreation is really quite dependent on our water resources, and we can't be successful in our operations without proper management. And irrigation is an important component of our operations. Starting from our historical background of manual irrigation, moving through to site controllers back in the 1960s, to our central control system that we initiated in 1998. And today's latest smart technology that we're using today, we've got a long track record of improving our performance with regard to water management. And we'll be talking about next level improvements that we can make. This is all combined with the other components of irrigation management, with training, making sure that all systems are designed where we use the different forms of irrigation, drip, spray, rotor, and bubbler head irrigation, making sure our systems function the way they're designed through ongoing audits, programming, scheduling through the latest software and technology, and then regular maintenance and repair where it's observed or called in and reported. This chart describes an important set of data that we collect to really fine tune our application of water. Plant water needs are really based on the amount of water that's drawn up through the plant through transpiration and then also through soil evaporation. And so what the goal is to replace that water and no more. And the closer that we can follow this kind of bell curve that you see here in this chart to replace that soil moisture that the plants need, the closer we get to the most efficient landscape irrigation that we can possibly provide. And so this kind of describes how early spring coming into summer, you get warmer temperatures, higher wind, and other factors, day length increases. The water demand to grow these plants does increase. Then you hit around this time of year in August, you see a sharp decline and it starts to decrease. And this is common each year. So again, our objective is to really follow this evapotranspiration curve, or ET, data as close as we possibly can, and that's our goal. So we use a system that's really quite smart. There are many thousands of weather stations across the country. All of this weather data is fed into a computer system called Climate IQ, which provides customized climate data for each one of our sites. That is then sent out to our controllers, and each one of those is adjusted based on that ET demand curve. So we're constantly adjusting our irrigation throughout the year. Every day it's a little bit different, but it's based on following that ET curve as closely as we possibly can. That's the latest and greatest in irrigation technology. All right, I've got James here that'll talk a little bit about some components that we'd like to install that will take us to the next level.
So part of the uniqueness of this system we feel like this is a top level software system that we can do. But just to give you a little bit of background, we're managing approximately 800 acres of irrigated turf across 112 controllers, 83 park sites. That breaks down into 1,726 individual zones. So you think about that, what that means at your house, you may have 3 or 4. We're managing that many throughout our park system. And with new park development and site development, it's obviously increasing all the time. And that also converts down to over 15,000 individual irrigation heads. Now you're thinking about how much time and effort that could take every single time a mower comes in contact with one of those, or somebody running across a soccer field, those can get out of adjustments. So we do everything that we can to make sure, like Doug mentioned, through our system audits, that these things are functioning as efficiently as possible. And even though we have a few sites that are irrigated from a secondary source, they're still managed through this software, which helps make them as efficient as possible. So as we talked in the work session a short time ago, our plan, and then we think that the most effective use of these funds and where we can have the most impact is to help maximize this irrigation software's capabilities by updating some of our master valves and flow sensors. The important information or the value that that provides is this system, once you program it in, it learns the flow rate of each and every one of those zones. So it knows exactly how many gallons per minute it's running. Now you set a parameter on that, and if it flows above or below that, it'll automatically shut that system down. That information can only be gathered through the flow sensor. Most of our sites are equipped with this equipment that can actually function in the way that it's designed to, but we still have some sites that still are in need of updating the master valve and flow sensors. Once the flow sensor is sending that data through, it will send that signal back to the master valve and shut the entire system down. So in the event of a catastrophic failure in times past, it would just run all night until a concerned citizen stopped by and called in your on-call number, or typically it went to the water department and they had to contact us, and by the time the runaround went, it would run for several hours, obviously wasting an enormous amount of this valuable resource. So this will automatically shut that system down within a few seconds of sensing that excessive flow or whatever the case may be on that, whatever it's detecting. And so this is how newer technology, obviously there's always advancements. Some of these older flow sensors had a little mini turbine in there. Over time, they would wear out and they would become less accurate. They're not very accurate at very low flow rates. So it becomes a challenge when you're irrigating with drip irrigation systems, because some of those flows are so small, these older flow sensors could not pick up that low of a flow rate. So if there was a failure or something like that, those would continue to run until we were able to recognize that. With these new ultrasonic flow sensors, they can detect flow rates down to a gallon or two per minute. So they're highly sensitive and they're highly effective. And with these funds, that's our intention, is to update some more of these with this newer technology that obviously can be more impactful and more effective. With the sites, when we converted over to WeatherTrack, even though our park system continued to increase, and comparing data from 2017 prior to WeatherTrack to last year, which was one of our driest, heavily dependent seasons on irrigation, we were still able to reduce our water consumption by 10%. And we expect that that number could also be achieved through these other sites by updating these components. So our prioritization on this, we looked at the largest sites that we have that are not completely compliant or effective with this newer technology, and prioritize from that list down. So we feel like we can have the most impact and feel very confident we could see an additional 10% or more savings in our water usage there. And we have already spoken with a lot of our vendors. We have some of this equipment they have that on their shelf, but we'd have to order some, but we would probably look at an installation beginning this fall once our irrigation system has been winterized and deactivated, and completing that through the spring of 2024. So don't know if you have any questions or.
Thank you.
Like that. Yeah.
Any questions from the council?
All right,
Thank you. All right, we'd like to open this item up for public comment or public hearing. All right, council discussion. Councilor Ellsworth.
Yeah, I just want to say to anyone in the public, we heard about this, I think 2 weeks ago in our last work meeting, and was one of a couple of ideas that we put forth to improve in water conservation in our city. And it's great to see our Parks and Rec department supporting that objective. We live in the second driest state in the country, and we've been in chronic drought for many years. So any and all applications are appreciated. So thank you.
Any more discussion? All right, we will take a vote on the implied motion. Counselor Handley,
Yes.
Counselor Shipley,
Yes.
Counselor Hoban,
Yes.
Counselor McKay, yes. Counselor Whipple,
Yes.
Counselor Ellsworth,
Yes.
Counselor Fillmore,
Yes.
and that is unanimous with 7 votes. All right, we are going to be continuing the implied motion on a resolution encouraging Provo City's administration to embark on a public information campaign regarding on-reinforced masonry hazards and general earthquake safety. Next, we'll move ahead with an implied motion on a resolution appropriating $13,884.50 in the Economic Development Division in the general fund for sales tax increment post-performance payment to Days Market from general fund sales tax revenues. And this will be presented by Keith Morley, our Assistant Director of Development Services.
Great. Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. So if you remember right, this is one of the sales tax reimbursement agreements that we entered into with the Days Market Shopping Plaza area for improvements that they made, with the understanding that they made those improvements. We would share back a portion of the sales tax that was collected to help offset. I'm sorry, I keep forgetting that if you touch that screen, I mark all over it. That we would share back a portion of that sales tax to reimburse them for their expenses. So we review their sales tax amounts month to month, and the annual payment is due for them, and the amount this year is $13,884. And to me, that's just a good sign of a healthy shopping area that we were able to contribute to in a small way and encourage them to continue to grow and develop. So it's a positive thing, and they're a great asset in our community. So I'd ask for your approval on this item tonight.
Thanks, Keith. Any questions for Keith? Counselor Hoban.
I guess it's not really for Keith, but is there a way to automate these payments to where they don't have to come to the council? Or why is it that they have to come to council? Because we've agreed to this, right, in the past. And so it seems like this is just a formality.
It is.
A lot of times formalities are, there's no way around it.
That's a good legal question. I mean, I don't know. I think the agreement originally stipulated that we would do this. And I think I agree with you. And normally I think that I would like to have us not have to do this. However, I do think that there's a good sense of accountability about this because it gives us an opportunity to make sure with you that the agreement that we entered into is bearing fruit. And so I think it's a good opportunity for us to be accountable and for the project to be accountable and for you to be able to ask questions or to say, I mean, if all of a sudden the year lapses and they're in the negative, it would be a good option, an opportunity for all of us to say, so what's going on? And is there something going on in the economy, or is there something that we need to do to help, or what happened? So frankly, I like it. It's not too cumbersome if it's not too cumbersome for you.
From a legal perspective, I don't know the answer to this question, Keith. Is the amount of the payment predetermined as long as they meet?
It's dependent every year on the amount of sales tax they generated.
And so that I think is the challenge.
It
is what we're actually doing, less than really approving that they get paid, is appropriating the money. The only way to avoid that would be to put the money into the budget in advance, but we don't know how much to put in the budget until the calculation is done. So
I didn't really have any concerns. Just seemed like a formality, and
I appreciate that.
Thanks, Brian. Any more questions for Keith? Thanks, Keith. We'll open this item up for public comment. John Borgett has a comment.
Yes, there is one option that we could consider if the council wanted us to look into it and work with legal. We're actually going to improve the budget ordinance tonight for fiscal 2024, but it could be stipulated in the budget ordinance, and that could make it so it wouldn't require it to come back, and it would be all these types of agreements. And so that's an option.
Okay, thanks, John. All right, we'll open up this item for public comment. We have Becky Bogdan from Provo.
Becky Bogdan from Provo, Utah. My suggestion would be no, keep it so that it comes to council, just because it's more transparent. It lets everybody know, even the public, hey, this is a deal that we made to give away some of our tax money. This is how much we're giving away, and this is why. Anyway, thanks.
Thanks, Becky. Any other public comment? All right, we'll close public comment. Council discussion. Right, I will call for a vote on the implied motion. Councillor Shipley.
Yes.
Councillor Hoban.
Yes.
Councillor McKay, yes. Councillor Whipple.
Yes.
Councillor Ellsworth.
Yes.
Councillor Fillmore.
Yes.
And that's unanimous with, ooh,
Skipped me.
so sorry, Councillor Handley.
Yes.
And that is unanimous with 7 votes. Next implied motion on an ordinance adopting a budget of Provo City Corporation for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2023 and ending June 30th, 2024 in the amount of $342,101,883. It's a big number. Presented by Kelsey Zarbach. She is our city budget officer.
Is that mic on?
Do I have to? Oh, here we go. As Councilor McKay mentioned, we're here to do the final budget adoption for the fiscal year 2024 budget. State code actually requires municipalities adopt a budget by September 1st if there was a property tax increase proposed, which was the case in this budget. Just so the public is aware, this is not the first time the council has heard anything about this budget. It's been an ongoing process. They received the tentative budget on May 2nd, and there have been many meetings, including public hearings in May, June, and then a truth and taxation hearing that was held on August 8th regarding the property tax increase. So this has been a vetted budget and it's a balanced budget. And so just so the council's aware, we took the motions that you made during the work meeting today and implemented those property tax motions into this version of the budget that is for your approval tonight. I could go on and on about the budget, but you've heard a lot about it. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But for now, the resolution or the ordinance states that the final budget is $342,101,883. Any questions?
Councillor Whipple.
I'm just wondering why the number is different than what was in our packet.
So that was probably the rough draft. It was. So that number hadn't been updated because it was a placeholder from last year's budget, essentially. We didn't know what the final version would be until we knew what the property tax rates were going to be. And so that was just barely updated between like 4 and 5:30 today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So to be clear, last year our budget was the other number?
Yes.
So we've gone down.
Yes, and that had to do with some capital projects that we didn't have as much spending in this year's budget for.
All right, sorry, I mind blanked there. Any questions for Kelsey? Councillor Fillmore.
Not so much a question as just a commendation. Thank you for doing all the heavy lifting on this. You mentioned for public comment that, or public information, that we've been at this since May. We've really been at it since January, February.
Yes.
When we started getting,
well, yes, you had all the budget hearings.
Getting presentations from the different departments. And I just appreciate how well John Borgett and Kelsey and the others worked to pull this together to make it really a very reliable budget. And it's been a pleasure working with you this year as every year.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kelsey.
Thank you.
We'll open this item up for public comment. All right, I'll close public comment and back for council discussion. Councillor Hoban.
I'd like to say thanks to the staff as well for all the work involved in this, working tirelessly on it. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the budget with the change that we keep the tax rate at 0.0056, I believe. Is that correct? Standard?
000.
0.00056. And that we instruct city staff to allocate revenues that come in for the TIFs for NORDA and the mix, 50-50% each to the library and the police budget for the purpose of increasing staff for the police department and also funding the shortfall for the library. And that would be for the duration of the TIFs. So as we have revenue coming in. And I know that that's not binding, but until another council came in and said otherwise, that's how we would proceed.
So is that legal, Brian?
No. I mean, well, to this extent. So the reason why I say that is because the council cannot direct administrative staff to do anything. So to the extent that you could ask them before you pass the budget to figure out what those numbers for 2023 and 2023 to 2024 are going to be, and to put those numbers into the budget before you pass it, you could do that. But you can't, now you can pass a resolution of a statement of desire about what you want those monies to be used for as they come in. But as they come in, they actually just go into the general fund, and then the council has to appropriate them anyway. So they don't come in. Well, let's say Keith maybe.
I mean, I think there's a bigger problem than that, because the state statute doesn't allow us to spend RDA funds collected on a project area outside the project area unless we do a benefit finding to show that somehow those funds relate to some other redevelopment project within Provo City, and that there's a justifiable reason to use them that way. And the reason why we do that is because we've entered into agreement with these other taxing entities that we're going to use their funds that we collect in that area. And so the only way we could spend them somewhere else is if we do I think it's called a project area finding or whatever, that says that the area outside of which the monies were collected, we're going to spend those funds there because there's a direct correlation between what we're doing over here on that project area. Otherwise, you can't do it.
So help me understand, when tax revenue comes in from an area that is benefiting from a TIF, that tax revenue has to go back to that same exact area?
The TIF does. The TIF amount that's collected.
Okay, so it's tax revenue then?
Yeah, the tax increment that was, so that whatever the agreement says, 75% or whatever for whatever period of time, that TIF amount that we identify in those agreements has to be spent within that project area. Or we have to be able to show, I mean, hypothetically, let's say that the area that in question had a sewer deficiency. And so we realized that the lines in that area had to be upgraded, and extrapolating all the way back, there was those lines had to be upgraded outside of the project area. You could say, we're going to spend that money outside of the project area because there's a relation. If we don't do this, there's no point doing this. And so the state law allows us to do that. But if we all of a sudden over here, there's a park that we want to build, and we think, hey, wouldn't it be a great idea to take the money that school district has given us to build this park? The school district's like, yeah, that's not what we agreed to. That's not why I'm in the deal.
Well, this may be a nomenclature issue too, as far as the words that Councillor Hoban actually used, because you're talking about the money that comes into the RDA.
Correct.
Right. I think, although it might not have used the right term, but I think Councillor Hoban's actually talking about the actual tax revenue received by the city attributable to
that was my intent, but I don't know how to phrase it.
The area. But again, it's an issue of, in order to do something with that money, you have to put it in the budget or allow it to fall to general fund and then appropriate
Okay,
it, which can't
so
be done
I'll
today.
amend my motion to state that what I said before, except that the council will pass a resolution stating our intent that we'd like those funds, that additional tax revenue to go towards the police department and the library, as I stated previously, 50-50 split for the purpose of increasing FTE for the police department and funding the shortfall in the library. Is that appropriate?
If I understood it, I think you're fine. I mean, you're
Close enough.
You're amending the budget and asking for the council to make a statement of intent, right?
The intent is, rather than increasing taxes, let's find other money, and we'll have future money in future years. We'll have money coming in from these projects, and let's state our intent that those should be allocated to fund these shortfalls right now. And it's not binding, but we're stating our intent through a resolution. That's the idea.
Michael?
So Councilor Hoban, I just wanted to make sure that we understand that the number on the screen, the 00567, that is 76, that is including the increase that we just talked about.
I said 560. I thought the standard rate was 560.
Okay, just making sure.
Thanks.
So just to clarify, Councilor Hoban, the county auditor certified rate would be 560. Are you also asking to change the library rate, which would be 000395?
The standard rates, yes.
Okay.
Sorry, what we would consider the standard rates this year?
What the rates that we were
certified
given
rates from the county? There,
Okay.
thank you.
Chair McKay, I think it'd be appropriate to ask if there's a second before having further discussion. Of the
Is there a
motion.
second?
Yes, I'll second this only for the sake of discussion.
I got a second at least.
All right, discussion on the motion. Councilor Shipley?
Nope. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Travis. We need to talk about this before. I mean, it's okay to say, like, in the future, if we have additional revenues from different projects, we should use these for public safety and for the library. But we're talking about specifically the projects going on now could be 10 or 20 years in the future. And we're talking about needs that are happening in the coming year or two. And so I just don't see them as matching. I don't see it as a matching issue at all. We're not able to create or fill this shortfall that we're trying to talk about and fill right now with the proposed motion at all.
I'll respond to that. So the mix is supposed to generate revenue by 2025. So there'd be some revenue coming in in 2 years, I believe.
There's TIF, but there's not additional revenue to the city. So the TIF is going back to the developer, not to us.
Okay. So the library has an 8 to 10 year run rate probably before it runs out of funds. Does that make a difference?
No, because we're 20 years out on both these projects today.
20 years out from generating any tax revenue. Is that what you're saying?
Additional tax revenue. I mean, in a substantial amount, yes, because in the meantime, we're giving it back to the developer to continue these projects.
Only a percentage, though.
It's most of it.
Well, there's still 100K, 200K a year coming in. Isn't that what we need, is a couple 100K each year to make up these shortfalls?
I mean, we could ask for clarification on this, but my assumption is that we're not even close to 100,000 between the two. That would be additional revenue to the city beyond what we have to pay out the TIF.
I don't think that's correct, but.
Councilor Whipple?
Counselor Hoban, I really love that you see the box and you're like, let's get outside of that. That is delightful. That actually really makes me happy. I love that you're being creative and that you're pushing for something that you really care for. I, however, do not want to scuttle our budget process for that. But I'm really excited to have more budget conversations and more creative financing conversations with you in the future.
Awesome. Thanks.
Anyone else want to discuss? All right, we'll take a vote on the motion. Councilor Hoban?
Yes.
Councilor McKay, no. Councilor Whipple?
No.
Councilor Ellsworth? Nope. Counselor Fillmore,
No.
Counselor Handley,
No.
Counselor Shipley.
No.
All right, well, that fails 1-6. Okay, anyone else like to make a motion or any more discussion? All right, well, we'll call for a vote on the implied motion then. Counselor McKay, yes. Counselor Whipple?
Yes.
Counselor Ellsworth?
Yes.
Counselor Fillmore?
Yes.
Counselor Handley?
Yes.
Counselor Shipley?
Yes.
Counselor Hoban?
I have the benefit of voting no, knowing this is already going to pass. So just based on principle, no, but I don't want that to be a reflection on the efforts of our city staff, finance staff to prepare the budget and such. So thank you.
And that will pass 6-1 with Counselor Hoban a no. All right, next, an implied motion on a resolution approving the first amendment to an interlocal agreement for the mixed community reinvestment project area. And this will be presented by Keith Morey, our Assistant Director of Development Services.
Okay, just a quick summary. We've been talking about this for some time. And what we've tried to do is compile all the things that we have talked about previously in the mix's request to amend the agreement that we had with them. And if you remember right, the couple of things that they were hoping that we would allow them to accomplish was to take the window that the tax increment period would exist in and shift it a couple of years since they purchased the project after this deal was constructed so that they could take advantage of the tax increment. So the current agreement as it's structured in front of you begins that window in 2025 and lets it run through 2036. It caps the total amount that they could collect through the project at 2.5 million. And I think that kind of addresses everything that we talked about through the previous conversations that we had. It also takes the term of the project to 12 years. So.
Thanks, Keith.
You bet.
Any questions for Keith? I think the developers are here too, if there's any questions for them. Counselor Shipley.
So from our work meeting, I thought we were going to have two pieces to this, or that we agreed on one.
This is the mix.
Right, but there was an extension and an expansion, and I thought we agreed on the extension.
That's NORDA, right? We're talking about the mix.
No, yeah, in the work meeting on the mix, not today, but before, I thought we were going to vote on only one of those, or at least prepare for them separately. It was my understanding coming back. So what we're looking at today both expands the scope of it and increases the time frame. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions for Keith? All right, thanks, Keith. We'll open this item up for public comment. And we will close public comment. Council discussion. Counselor Shipley.
Yeah, just to clarify on what I was talking about there, when we talked about this before, I had a reservation about expanding the scope of this project, not with the time frame of the project at all. And one of the things that was mentioned in that meeting is that due to increased costs, that's why we're relooking at this. And of course, costs have inflated, for building and for building out this project. But investor groups have also benefited over the last few years to the inflation as well. I mean, they've built out a lot of housing, and the housing is inflated considerably. So it's a significant return on investment for this same development group. Different investors, I think I clarified, but the same development group. And so for me, I guess I'm not anxious to subsidize, a different set of investors on the new leg of it. And if I recall correctly, we voted, I think I was, one of only two people that voted against. So you're right. We were going to bring it all back together, but I still can't support the scope expansion. I'm fine with the timeframe expansion on it.
You want questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just state your name, please.
Sean Poor, Provo, Utah with Brighton Communities. I just wanted to respond to your question. I know we had a little bit of discussion about this last time. And you're definitely correct. The rents have gone up significantly over the COVID period. The difference though, there was a window to when the developer would have benefited tremendously from that, and we didn't meet that window. And the reason that window exists is because of the financing. So even though rents have gone up significantly, because we are not done with our construction yet, we don't have our perm financing in place. And so we're subject to the new interest rates. So our returns have actually gone down quite a bit, even on the residential projects that have had increased rents.
But just to clarify, it's because you're choosing to rent all those out and not selling any of them. If you were to sell them, you'd benefit from capital appreciation on all those units.
We would benefit from the sale of them for sure, but the sales prices that we've had on other projects have also gone down significantly as well.
Any other questions? All right, council discussion. All right, I guess we'll take a vote on the implied motion. Councilor Whipple.
Yes.
Councilor Ellsworth.
No.
Councilor Fillmore.
Yes.
Councilor Handley.
Yes.
Councilor Shipley.
No.
Councilor Hoban.
Yes.
Councilor McKay, yes. So that passes 5-2. All right, if there's no objection, we will now adjourn the Provo Municipal Council meeting by unanimous consent.
Recording stopped.